Hello and welcome to a topic, not Tuesday, but Saturday today. I haven't personally got it, but 3 years ago to this day actually, I unfortunately lost my dad to cancer itself. So I thought I'd kind of share my thoughts and opinions about it and how I coped, just hoping that maybe would kind of help people out there that are kind of dealing with family that are having it, friends and stuff like that. Just, it's just, I thought I'd just kind of give my advice and what I did, and how my story to dealing with my dad having it and how he dealt with it himself before he died. So it's not which is, I fully understand, it is a very personal story. I've been thinking for probably the last month whether to do this video, but I thought if it's gonna benefit anyone else, and yeah, we could. I'm quite an open book. I don't really mind talking about things like this, but this is something that I thought it would kind of help, because I don't necessarily go into too much detail when it comes to telling people how this whole went. Right, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background to how it came about. So it was 2011, around summer, so about August I think, and I was just, I think I knew at the time it was going to happen. My dad had told me before he had, because actually if I go backtrack a little bit, I never lived with my dad. Well, I did when I was younger, but obviously mum and dad divorced. Dad moved up north with his family, so I didn't really see him an awful lot. But nonetheless, I was still probably the closest to him, I would say, out of all of my brother and my sisters. So I always used to keep in touch with them. I'm not going to go too much into the backstory of everything. So, but yeah. So I was really close to my dad, and so it was always really hard for me. And I did take it really bad, actually. But anyway, getting back to the story. So it was summer 2011 when he got told he had, I think it was melanoma cancer, so skin cancer. He had it before. Well, he had a kind of a scare, I think it was. So they took what they found. I think it was a mole at the time. It was a kind of a growing mole. They took that off. I think it was his left arm. So they took that off, and then it came, obviously a couple of years later, came back, and an operation, I think it was a tumour underneath his left armpit, I believe. So they had that removed. Since then, he was fine. Obviously it wasn't 100%, but there wasn't not much change to him. Me and my brother went down and saw him October. We stayed with him for a couple of days, with him and his girlfriend. Which is really nice. There wasn't much of a difference that you can tell from when I've seen him last to when I obviously saw him then. Obviously you can tell that he's a little bit more slimmer. He lost a bit of weight, and his kind of diet, you can tell for his diet, because he was drinking a lot of water. Didn't really eat that much. Getting tired as well was one of the things. That first time, initial time when we went down there, he was fine. But that was the time where me and brother were with him, and we kind of wanted to do. Well, I know I personally wanted to just do as much as I could with him. So I went out fishing, which I've never done with my dad before, which is one thing I always wanted to do. That was a good trip. Caught some fish. And we also just kind of went out. We went bowling, played tennis, and it was a tough time, that initial step, because when you first get told, obviously no one's ever had it in my family before, so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was going to happen. But that first initial meeting, nothing had changed from what I saw. So yeah, it was fine. But then obviously went home. Then still keep in touch, talking stuff, and then I think I went up again by myself, I believe. A couple months later on, there's a slight difference. He was again lost a lot more weight. He was a little bit different. Not much had changed from when I last saw him because there wasn't a huge time gap in between them. Anyway, so that I only went out for a couple of days. Came back, nothing much changed. Then came, I think it was December. Obviously, Christmas came. That's fine. Nothing happened over Christmas. And I think it was January actually that we went down to see him. At this point, he'd been rushed into a hospice. So, a hospice is different to a hospital. It's kind of where people, well, for example, where my dad went, because they did think he was going to go then in January. But we went. Obviously, I think it was me and my sisters went down there and saw him, and he wasn't 100% at all. I think at this point, that's when he had the proper chemo. His hair had gone, so seeing someone like that, so physically physically changed. It was a lot harder to kind of take in, and when you see him in the hospital in a kind of a bed as well, it kind of knocks your confidence down about the whole situation. But he was very tired. He was very tired. He was very weak. But we went down there. Kind of just sat in his hospice room, and just kind of just spoke and everything like that. And we just kind of, I think with my family, we tend to deal with things in the form of having a joke and having a laugh and stuff like that. So when I went to my dad, I'd say, "Oh, I'm gonna bring a big spoon next time," because the thing of my family, me and my dad have very egg-shaped heads, so you can tell when he was bald from the chemo. I just go, "Oh, you look like a giant bald egg," just stuff like that. Just try and enlighten, find a funny thing out of a bad situation, which is something that I personally use to get over things. So anyway, kind of he was fine-ish. Then we got told that he wasn't doing well actually in January. So kind of we were expecting the worst from that. So that wasn't the best time, but that's just the things with people going through chemo. They do have bad reactions to the medicine that they're on. I think that at that time that was what he had gone through a bad spell from having the chemo to get rid of the cancer. But he was a trooper and fought through that. Then it came to March. So it was the 20. I think what day it was. It was March the 20th, I believe. So this is the day before he died. I actually had my first ever theory test for my driving that day. And I think in the morning, I got told by his girlfriends that he had, I think it was something happened during the night. So they rushed him back into the hospice. I don't think she necessarily told me everything. I think she might have told me something in the morning, but I had my theory test, which by the way I failed. And then after that, we got more information and decided that we had to go up and see him. So I mean, bear in mind this is Herefordshire, so you're looking at about 2.5 hours. It's just near Wales. So we had to go up there. So it was me and my sisters drove up there, and as soon as we walked into the hospice, we kind of got pulled into a room by this nurse who was a great guy. And he kind of just said to us, kind of warned us, saying, we don't think he's going to make it through the night, because his body's just slowly shutting down. He was almost in a coma. He could respond, but it was just kind of a grunt. He was completely passed out. You could tell when he was in his bed, his breathing was really heavy. He's kind of almost gargling on his own kind of saliva. which wasn't nice at all. So yeah, as I said, the nurse pulled us in, kind of gave us the heads up, if you like, expecting us to kind of be there all night with him, and told us that he won't make it at all. So he was completely immobile at this point. He was just in a bed. We went in there, saw him, which was really, actually, to see him, he was a complete bipolar opposite of what he was when I last saw him. So it was actually really hard to see someone that you had been brought up with, to see them into a certain state where they were so incapable of looking after themselves and having to be looked after by so many people. It was really hard to witness it, and just sitting there, I was in the room by myself at one point, whilst my sisters went out with his girlfriend, and I was just sitting there holding his hand, and it was really hard to kind of just sit here, hearing him breathing and hear him struggle. It was the worst thing that you could ever live through. He fought through another night. He kind of defied what the doctors had said. So throughout the day, same thing happened, and it came to about 7 o'clock. It was just my sisters had gone back into the house that we were staying in for the whilst we were there, and it was just me and his girlfriend, or I should say wife, actually. Sorry. And we were there, just kind of. He was in this room. We were kind of just outside. There was like some chairs that were just outside his door, so we had the door open. We were kind of just there watching him, and then all of a sudden it just kind of went downhill. He started kind of coughing a lot, really struggling, and so then at that point, Andrea's wife said, "Go get your sisters." So I went over to the road, went over across the road, get the sisters. All my sisters came back. Doctors were all in this room, and I didn't want this to happen because, like I said, that was the last thing I saw. Was just him struggling, and therefore we went to go get the sisters. Came back, and there was just us four, some sisters, me, and Andrea's wife, and probably about 10 minutes later, we got the nurse came up to us and gave us the bad news and said, "Oh, sorry, he's gone." Which one of my sisters completely burst into tears. She went outside. I was shocked. I remember that I just kind of, there was no response from me at all. This is someone that someone that I loved for ages, was really close to, and I was just completely shocked, and it was really hard to hear news of something that happened like that. Fuck's sake. And I kind of just got up and sister hugged, and then I just had to go. It's the hardest thing to ever have told you. One of your parents is gone. So I went outside, and I was out there for probably about two hours, just crying and not believing what's happened, even though I knew it was going to happen at some point. It was just not something that I wanted to hear, despite knowing that I was going to have to hear it. It did happen. I just called and told everyone. I just wanted to talk to someone, really. So I called up a few of my friends, and I spoke to my mum. And that was just the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. And if you've ever have to witness anyone dying, just do everything you can to help them, to make sure that you are always with them. That's my only thing. Because I always have that thought in my head. That that, you know, I've saw my dad die. That's effectively how it is, you know. You can never take away that thought, you know. You know, you can think about all the good things that you've done with them, or you can think about all the good memories, but you'll never forget that one bad memory. Because that one bad memory is so evidently clear in your brain, in your memory, that you won't be able to forget it. I will never forget what I saw. And the next day after, actually, we came back into the hospice to kind of say goodbye to all the staff that helped him, and you know, they offered us to go into us. They had basically a laying room where they put the people that passed, so they can rest in there before they obviously go off to obviously the crematorium or church, whatever. You know, my sisters didn't want to go into there because, you know, they wouldn't cope. But I thought to myself, I have to go in there. You know, so just because I had obviously the last sight of my dad was so horrific, and you know, I would never forget what I saw. So I went in there to kind of find closure straight after. So it's just me and obviously his body in the room. And I was in there for about half an hour, just talking to him, kind of telling him everything. And even though you know you're not gonna get one reply out of them, it's nice to kind of just open up, tell them everything. And I don't regret that decision at all of going in there to do that. It kind of was nice to see him at peace, to see someone that's been struggling for 6 months or so. That was it was nice actually to kind of open up to him. You know, I remember just kissing him on the head and saying my final goodbyes. But it was really hard. And then the nurse came in at one point, you know, gave me a hug and reassured me everything was going to be okay. Whew, that was hard. As much support as you can. Keep yourself busy. That's one thing that, you know, you need to keep in mind. You know, although you're gonna have the thought in your head the whole time, you know, you care for them. That's the main thing, you know. But you need to keep yourself busy. You need to keep yourself occupied. Keep your mind off of it. Because if you dwell on the thought too much, then it's going to affect you, and it's going to lead to all sorts of depression. You know, I did hit quite a low, but you know, I could have been worse if I didn't. You know, I didn't spend time with friends. I didn't go out. Stuff like that. So that's my advice. Always keep yourself busy. Keep your mind off the things, and just stay strong for them. You know, always. As cliche as it sounds, actually, do what you can when you can. You know, I'm glad I got to do the things that I did before my dad died. Right, thank you very much for watching that video. It was a really hard one to decide whether I wanted to upload that or not. I hope you managed to watch the whole thing without getting bored. It would really mean the world to me if you just comment below saying obviously what if you've gone through the same thing, or if you want any advice of how I dealt with everything. You know, I really just wanted to do this video to kind of help people, and kind of people that know me that may not have known what happened. You know, just kind of let them know more of the backstory. But no, and before people comment, I don't want people to think that this is just an attention seek. You know, that's one thing I don't want. If I wanted attention seek, you know, I would do it in other ways. But no, I just wanted to do this to kind of let people know what I went through in the process of it, and you know, how I want people to kind of see what I went through. But yeah, you know, if you want any advice on how, if you've got someone that's dealing with that at the moment and you don't know how to cope, then just, you know, comment below or message me, and you know, I'm more than happy to help. That's the thing I've learned from this. So you know, there wasn't a great deal of people that had been through this that I knew of, but no, I've had people after that have not necessarily dealt with cancer itself, but with other things, you know, with parents that have passed. But so I always like to make sure I'm there for anyone else as well. So thank you very much. On a positive note, I'm going to be uploading a Sprite and Banana Challenge video probably sometime next week. I'm going to do it today as well, so that will be up. So a little bit more positive to end on. You get to see me throw up, so that's a positive to end.